Honey?
It's flammable as fuck.
The Beekeeper stars Jason Statham as Adam Clay, a reclusive beekeeper whose only friend is his elderly neighbor. Unfortunately, one day after taking care of a hornet nest, Clay discovers her dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound after she lost her entire life savings to a phishing scam. Apparently, the people who suckered her are part of a vast network that the FBI has been powerless to take down. But the FBI doesn't have Adam Clay, who isn't just an average beekeeper. No, he's a retired member of a clandestine organization known as the Beekeepers, who operate above and beyond government jurisdiction. Like the CIA, but without all the drug money. As the chips fall and the bodies stack up, it soon becomes apparent that the web of treachery Clay navigates through may go all the way to the top of the US government. Remember when action movies were cool? When the leads were hard-nosed badasses, the stories were grounded in some form of heightened reality, the villains were amoral shitheels, and you couldn't wait to see what awesome thing the protagonist did next?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Because apart from John Wick, Fast and Furious, and whatever Tom Cruise and Gerard Butler and Liam Neeson are putting out, the mainstream Hollywood action field has been bone dry ever since the capes and spandex took off. Oh sure, the occasional East Asian piece, the occasional Scott Adkins or Michael Jai White vehicle do well enough to satiate one's appetite for pure, no bullshit action, but nobody ever talks about them because they're all direct-to-video, which is bullshit! But one guy who used to make a killing at the box office as an action star was Jason Statham, who has been primarily doing monster-budget blockbusters pretty much since Furious 7. Sure, The Meg was entertaining, mainly because of how cartoonishly stupid it was, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who misses the Statham of movies like The Transporter, The Mechanic, and criminally underrated thrillers like Killer Elite, Safe, and Homefront. With the release of The Beekeeper and news of Statham headlining an adaptation of the Levin Cade novels, I think we could safely say that Prime Statham is back, motherfucker, and I miss the shit out of you, Jason. Don't be a stranger. The Beekeeper is the kind of action movie where, if it had been made in the 80s, it would have been produced by the Cannon Group, with Adam Clay being played by the likes of Chuck Norris or Charles Bronson. And before you ask what's wrong with that, let me respond with not a solitary thing. Director David Ayer leans hard into the strengths of those type of movies, taking a bigger-than-life badass protagonist and setting him loose against an army of colorful villains so that your one-man army can fight the enemies of society. Except for the elected ones.
Eat a dick a dick a dick.
This isn't some overzealous auteur with an agenda or some nobody fresh out of film school who's in way over their head. David Ayer may not be the first director that comes to mind when it comes to making action movies, but between Street Kings, End of Watch, Sabotage, and Fury, the guy is definitely no stranger when it comes to making grounded, down-and-dirty action. And while his style may be on the tighter-framed, faster-cut side than I personally would have preferred, this is one of those cases where the action isn't disorienting because Ayer is one of the few directors to do that particular style of action well. Sure, I would prefer practical blood squibs and explosions over the CGI alternative, but when those are my only real grievances with the action, you know you're in for a good time regardless. As far as the cast is concerned, Jason Statham is at his Stathamist as Adam Clay, the one-man army against an empire of evil. Ruthless, cunning, and capable, he's everything the sentient soy pods of the MCU wish they were, and if seeing Statham return to his grounded roots was our reward for suffering through the abject disappointment that was Expendables 4, then by Stallone, it was almost worth it. Fucking almost. Emmy Raver Lampman of the Umbrella Academy fame plays Verona Parker, the FBI agent in charge of the investigation into the network of scammers Clay is after. She's mainly in the movie due to her mother, Clay's neighbor, being one of the millions of victims of this network, putting her in a constant race against Clay to bring the bad guys down the legal way. Honestly, I feel like her scenes really pad out the runtime, and it doesn't help that almost every line of dialogue she has is overflowing with 90s bad girl sass. Josh Hutcherson oozes sleaze as the movie's antagonist, tech billionaire Derek Danforth. The guy is everything you hate about rich 20-somethings and then some. Some might find that shallow and one-dimensional, but personally, I like my bad guys to be as detestable as possible. This is a guy who makes money by bankrupting the elderly. I don't want to sympathize with him. I want him suffocating in a pool of his own shit. and Hutcherson will make you wish he was every time he's on screen. But constantly in danger of stealing the scumbag spotlight from Hutcherson is the always amazing Jeremy Irons as his personal advisor, Wallace Westwild. He's constantly in danger of becoming the lead villain of the movie because while Danforth is a hothead who's used to throwing money at all his problems, Westwild is a constant thinker, trying to outwit Clay at every turn despite knowing the odds are not in his favor. In short, it's Jeremy Irons being Jeremy Irons, and I love it. The Beekeeper is fast, brutal, pure escapism that is well worth the watch for fans of pure action like myself, and I cannot recommend it highly enough, so do yourself a favor and fucking buy it.